Hello and welcome to Surveyor Says, the podcast from the National Society of Professional Surveyors. Each week, we bring you fascinating guests that are involved in the profession of surveying. We cover a lot of ground, including Table A Talk with Gary Kent, Point of Order with the NSPS Joint Government Affairs Team, Future Focus, highlighting current and future leaders of the profession, and everything survey-related in between. Thanks for joining us here on the podcast, and hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Surveyor Says. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Surveyor Says, the NSPS Podcast. This is episode 151. I am your host, Tim Birch. This week's episode captures the conversations during a recent virtual town hall discussing the upcoming student competition being held in Arlington, Virginia on March 29th through 31st, 2023, during the NSPS Spring Business Meetings. This conversation featured Denver Winchester, the chair of the NSPS Student Competition, discussing the rules, the general layout of how the competition is going to go, and we took questions from the actual potential competitors. So sit back, have a listen, and hope you enjoyed this episode of Surveyor Says, the NSPS Podcast. My name is Tim Birch. I'm the Executive Director of NSPS. Joining us today is Denver Winchester, the Chair of the NSPS Student Competition. And bottom line is we really had a good time last year with all of this, and we want to make sure that we continue this. So Denver, you were saying about not really modifying too much. Why don't you have you go over just how it kind of played out last year, and what if there's any small corrections, what we can anticipate trying to do.
Sure. So the monument hunt last year, that went exceedingly well. We did have a fair amount of monuments that were not recoverable, and in some areas we probably shouldn't have sent some folks because they needed access and various other things. So now, having done a lot of monument recovery that hasn't been done in a long time, we can significantly reduce the amount of monuments we don't have to get or have to deal with stuff to get into. Also, in theory, the metro is supposed to be running again, so we can reduce the amount of time, because 8 hours was just too long. 6 hours was what we originally had anticipated, and then the metro went down to 1 car per line, and we felt like we needed to give people extra time for that, but it ended up being too much time. I think everybody was pretty burnt out. They had a good time, but it was a lot of time during the day. So knocking that back down to the 6 hours we originally anticipated, I think will go a long way to everybody not passing out immediately when they get back from the monument hunt. I didn't have too much input from anybody on that, aside from that they liked it, and that we, obviously they don't want to have to get approval to get in places and stuff like that. So we're thinning that out and making sure that doesn't happen again. And we may look at changing a little bit of the scoring on some monuments here and there. But for the most part, the bulk of that event will be the same. As far as the measurement exercises, this year, the biggest issue we had last year was the amount of time it took to get between the exercises, because they were in 2 different locations, because we wanted to make use of Banneker Park and tie all of that together. I don't believe we're going to do that again this year. They will be in the same place one way or the other, so that we can control the amount of time people are at exercises and not have to bounce back and forth and stuff like that. So that would help with some teams taking a little bit longer on this, that, or the other. and also allow everybody to just kind of be together, I think is a better move. The leveling went smoothly last year. I don't anticipate that being an issue. There was no real complaints from anybody on that one. The traverse, and we initially were going to use a steel tape and a compass. We were unable to procure enough at the time, so we ended up having to go to half chains, and we made some adjustments while we were out there, but everybody was made aware of what they were, and I think that ended up being an exercise that a lot of people really enjoyed, getting to lay on your stomach and try to eyeball something, the results from the traverse were actually pretty good, especially using something you weren't prepared to use. So I think if people are prepared to use a tape or a chain, then I think that they're going to start off on a better foot this year, and there may not be as much of a learning curve in the very beginning. Also, since we know what we're doing, as opposed to adjusting it on the fly. The triangulation, I think, went as well as it could have went. We had a rainstorm, it was windy, like there was all kinds of stuff going on, and both instruments weren't exactly the same. Thankfully, we were able to rectify that because we had an older member of NSPS there that had used both types of T2. So thankfully we had that going on. The results from that were pretty good as well. Which brings me to the biggest complaint, and I take this a little bit on the chin. This was my doing, but we will have ahead of time, you will know when you're going to turn in anything. There will be we're not going to turn it around as quickly as we did and ask you to turn things around as fast as we did before, because it led to a little bit of crunch time, and I don't want to see that happening again. Also, we will have answer sheets where you just give us the answers. You provide us all of the backup work in case we need to backtrack or look at something, but that way grading goes significantly faster for the judges, and we can provide a little bit cleaner answers to you when you ask why you ended up where you ended up. Only a couple of teams reach out to me to get a rubric or anything like that, but I was able to provide that. I just would like that to be a cleaner thing for you to have. And so I think answer sheets, knowing exactly when everything's getting turned in, all of that ahead of time is going to make the day of the measurement exercises better for the teams. And other than that, the changes will be variables of what we're looking for here or there. I want the meat of it to be exactly what we did last year. For returning schools, it doesn't create a huge benefit to know what we're doing because they are pretty standard exercises. And I think that's useful as well, so it doesn't give a undue benefit to the schools that have been there before. Other than that, I think it's going to be a good deal. I just don't exactly know where we're going to have it at this point, because a lot of that relies on how many of you guys want to come and how many people are coming. And either way, we're going to have them all together. Everybody's going to be there. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Denver, because that's why it is so important that we get as many teams that are going to register in as soon as possible, because we can then gauge how big of a site we're talking about and how many exercise cycles we're talking about to do the field operations. To your point, you're right. The logistics, we really wanted to use Banneker Park simply because it was Benjamin Banneker being named Global Surveyor of the Year last year, wanted to include that. But yet we still wanted to include the iconic triangulation of using the Washington Monument. Hopefully, if we can get everybody signed in soon enough, and we can establish how many people are going to be around and what kind of exercises in what areas we are looking at, we would like to do all the exercises on the National Mall, including that similar triangulation with the Washington Monument. I, for one, I'm very jealous that the students got to do that. I would have loved to have done that myself, amongst other things. But if we can do that, but it takes a lot of knowledge ahead of time, because we've got permits we've got to clear, where there's a lot of hurdles with the National Park Service we have to clear. So the more we know about teams that want to participate, the sooner the better. But like Denver said, even if we can't get that to work out, we do have a couple of alternatives to where everything's going to be in one place. So, really kudos to Denver and his team for putting this all together on the, not really, and being able to course correct on various things last year, because it was, and like you said, Denver, that was a heck of a thunderstorm that came in during the field exercises. That was pretty substantial that had to deal with. It's hard to plan for things like that. So, bottom line is, it was really a great event. And I guess that was, at this point, if there's any questions, comments, thoughts, we can talk about a little more of the social activities we're going to be doing, a couple of different nights, and we are planning on having that awards luncheon again on Friday, with not just the students, but the young surveyors, and with all of the board of directors and attendees of our spring business meeting, because that's really to me that's the whole goal, is to have anyone that's involved in surveying within this event. It's about camaraderie and being able to share amongst the generations. So, we really like to see students there, actually resumes in hand and getting ready for their careers, beyond college. So that's a great opportunity there too. But at this point, we'll take any questions anybody may have. Just throw a hand up, and I can call anybody.
I don't have a way to hold up my hand. Apparently, it doesn't. I was looking for it, but if I could just interject real quick.
Yes, sir.
Denver and Bert, it was awesome last year. This is Dan Perry from Utah Valley University. We really enjoyed the activity and the competition. It was really fun. Just had a couple of comments there. We found out afterwards that there were several students on the measurement aspect there, and they turned their notes in, that they had actually used CAD to do that, and we were under the understanding that it was supposed to be done with with calculators manually. That wasn't, I suppose, as clear as it could have been there. Maybe, I'm not sure what the plan is for this next year, Denver, if we're going to do that. You're saying we need to throw all of the notes in and everything that we did. Are we going to use CAD? If we are, let everyone know. If we aren't, then it should be done by hand calculators. And I don't know. That was the only thing that we had with it that I'd like to comment on, somehow to address that particular issue. But other than that, it was a terrific competition. We really enjoyed it.
No one had made me aware of that. It was stated in the initial stuff that it was just NC's approved calculators. Nobody had made me aware of anybody doing anything else. So I will make that as clear as humanly possible. This is an NC's calculators, pencil and paper situation. One team got exceedingly close on something, and not to name any teams, one team got exceedingly close on one, and when you went back and looked at their math, like it didn't work out. So I went with the answer that they had in their original math. That's why we had you turn in the work, because there were a couple. One team got really close and they just did the math correctly, and one team got really close and the math didn't work. So I don't know of a way to curtail that aside from everybody just hanging out while they do their math, but it will be exceedingly clear that it is only NC's calculators.
Yeah, it kind of came out afterwards. We got home and a couple of my guys were saying, well, we overheard, during when the whole competition was over and everyone was sitting around having a party there, some things came out there about how they approached the project, and we found out that a couple of teams ended up using CAD solve the problem. And our team had our own problems, but that wasn't one of them. So we were just concerned about that because we thought for sure it was, as you stated, Denver, the calculator, hand calcs and writing it out on paper and pencil. So anyway, just wanted to clarify. That's all.
No, Dan, thanks for bringing that up because I like Denver. I'm kind of shocked to hear this. This is the first I've heard of it, and I'd like to think that I've kept my ear to the ground for a lot of this behind the scenes, versus what Denver and his team were doing. And so, bottom line is, you would hope that it's the spirit of this competition to do this, to follow those rules. I guess to me, it's almost no different than cheating in golf, but it's going to happen sometimes. But bottom line is, and Denver and his team will make every effort to make sure that's as level a playing field as possible. That's, like I said, that's really the spirit of the whole thing.
Yeah, of course. Again, I decided not to make a complaint about it or anything, but it just was something that I thought I should bring up at this point.
Sure. All right. Anyone else? Anything else? If you've got a chance, throw your hand up or even throw it in the chat. We can take a look at it there. Any thoughts? One thing I will say, and I'll say this not really tongue in cheek, but just kind of just kind of a matter of fact. We probably won't do anything as substantial as Punch Bowl Social because holy cow, these teams and the young surveyors can drink, and I made the mistake of opening the bar, and we're not going to make that mistake again because that was an expensive evening. So, but we're going to do some things and try to have some fun. We're talking about some trivia nights and some other activities that bottom line is we're there to enjoy each other's company and for some fellowship. So we'll definitely try to do some more things like we did last year. All right. Any other questions? Somebody's got to have some questions out there. I appreciate everybody coming on because to be honest with you, we were hoping to get a handful of people, and this is a pretty good turnout. I will say we are getting a lot of correspondence, a lot of response on the competition. And like Denver said, we even have had to open it to, I guess that's one clarification on the non-traditional category, which means not a 4-year, not a 2-year college. That really what that means is we could have just easily said high school, but even that's not totally correct if we want to be open to everybody. So what we said by non-traditional would be really non-college at this point. Yes, we're going to have a couple of high school teams coming in, but we also wanted to leave it open that if there was high school ages, that maybe some homeschool co-ops that wanted to get involved, that could be as well. So we want to make sure that this is open because bottom line is we want to attract as many participants as possible. So no, that's good.
I must jump in there real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I had been approached by a number of societies that no individual school was able to field a team, but several students from several schools wanted to go, and we wanted a way to include them. So in addition to the high school, it was also like, hey, if you've got 3 schools in your state and 2 people from every school want to compete, then we don't want them competing against your programs. We'll let them compete in all these other various groups, just like a third catch-all category of anything that doesn't fall into a standard survey program. Because you don't want to turn anyone away, but at the same time, like, you're putting your program up against other programs. It doesn't feel fair to have this extra category compete against you guys.
Good. I'm thanks, Denver. I had forgotten about that basically kind of a college co-op as well as an opportunity. That you're right. You hate to put them in the same category as a 2-year or 4-year when when they're students coming from various programs. So that's good. Amber has a question of, so we need the right answers and all the process, or just the right answers on an answer sheet?
So I need the answer sheet, which we will grade from, and then we will backtrack onto your work. But this will streamline grading, because the way we were doing it is we were working forward in all of your work for every single exercise. And, it just takes a long time versus going backwards from the answer and just making sure that everything looks fine. There's nothing out of whack. So we will have an answer sheet and also your backup work. But that's just so that the judges and everybody that does the grading has an easier time of grading, so that we're not pushing the 11th hour, and so we have a lot easier way to give you, like, here's where you went wrong, or here's where you stacked up against other teams, or something like that at the end of it.
All right, very good. Hand up by Jake from Dunwoody.
Yeah, hi. Jake Blue from Dunwoody here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I've got two questions. The first is about which category we should apply for. We are a 2-year school, but we also offer a 1-year certificate. And so we've had a certificate student asked to compete along with the 2-year students. Should we compete in the 2-year category or in the mixed category?
I would say in the 2-year category, because you're taking like a smaller program and it's from the same school.
Correct.
The only time we've ever made that distinction is if there was a 2 and a 4 at the same school, then they had to compete in the 4. So I would feel like it's the same way. A certificate student would push you into the associates.
Okay. My second question is about the equipment. I presume everything will be supplied out there. We don't have to bring our own equipment with?
Yes, sir. All equipment will be supplied by any number of people. We will get on the hook to let us borrow some of their stuff.
Sure. I don't suppose there's any way to know in advance which equipment we're going to be using?
We will, as soon as we know, that will be released to all teams.
Okay.
And as soon as we know anything about anything during this process, there will be a list of all the teams that apply, and they will get all of that information when it happens.
Very good. Thank you.
Jake, the only caveat to I'm going to go back to the certificate student competing with the 2-year. As long as that certificate student's not a ringer of some sort, that'd be the only thing.
I promise no ringers.
No, that's all good. To Denver's point, we're working with the Surveyors Historical Society and a few other antique equipment owners to secure all this equipment, and them knowing the dates, and unfortunately some people don't want to commit to something that far out just yet. So trying to work things out to where we have the same reasonable equipment we had last year, and it's in good working order, that's reliable, but until we get that nailed down, the other part is really knowing how many teams we're going to have as well, and how many stations we're going to have to set up for some of these things. So yeah, he's absolutely right. As soon as we know, we'll get that out to everybody. Mr. Perry, back to you again.
Yeah, sorry, just had another thought on this. That last question kind of brought up another issue. We've had in the past, your word ringer actually is what caused it. In the past, we have several, I won't say several, we've had a few of our students, bachelor's degree students, who already are licensed. And it's never really been clear in previous competitions whether they're allowed or not. So we've allowed them to compete at different times if they wanted to. That probably should be clarified in the competition, that do we allow that or not? Because we are trying to encourage people to get additional education. So that's good, but that may not be something we want to have apply to this particular competition. We do maybe want people who are not licensed, but are pursuing their bachelor's degree or whatever degree they're pursuing. I'm just bringing that up as something that can cause a question.
No, that's a great great situation that I personally haven't thought of, but makes a lot of sense that for those like myself, I do not have a degree, but yet I'm a licensed surveyor. That if I wanted to go back to school and be part of that process, that yeah, technically I could, if I was in that educational program, I could participate as well.
I'm saying we should make a decision on it, is what I'm saying, one way or the other.
That's what I was just going to suggest to Denver. We should let us talk internally with that, and if we need to, throw out an addendum to the basically the rules of competition, I think that would be fair.
Okay, great.
Denver, what's your thoughts?
Whenever I initially set this up last year, I read through all of the student competition announcements and rules for like the prior 10 or 15, and they were never excluded. So I chose not to address that point. I understand like how that could be an issue. But I think especially at some of the 2-year schools, and where that's the only school in the state or whatever, and they transition to a 2-year or something, you're going to stop some schools from having, because there are some schools where they're completion schools, or stuff like that. I do think it's worth talking about, and having NSPS make that decision. I feel like that is a little bit outside my pay grade. I feel like if NSPS decides that they don't want to include licensed professionals, then they can make that decision, and we will let everybody know. But I do think that's not a decision.
I think it definitely is an issue. We've had it come up a couple of times, and we've competed, and we were told afterwards that we lost a lot of points because we had a licensed person and they knew the person was licensed. And so we got put immediately at a disadvantage. Again, I'm not trying to, cry sour grapes here. I'm just saying, and in a situation where we're going head to head like this, my personal view is we should exclude them. They just have more experience, and that's really not what the spirit of the competition is about. So I feel like it should be stated that they are excluded. But again, right. It's up to NSPS to figure this out. But that's my suggestion.
And that makes sense. And if it was included in some kind of grading rubric, I never saw that. So maybe that's where the hit was taken, or where there was some kind of deviation. Because I had thought about it, but because it had never been addressed, I just didn't do anything with it.
Yeah, sure. And these are things that, you kind of find out. Sometimes it's rumor. Sometimes it's people, like last year, I had one of the judges come up and talk to us about it. And that's when I knew about how things were done. And, and then we had some our students that had participated in the previous years, or they hear about it. Usually it comes up in the, at the get together, the little party afterwards. That's usually when things people have been drinking a little bit, getting a little bit loose lipped, and all of a sudden we start finding out about how things were done. And you kind of going, well, that wasn't really fair. Maybe we shouldn't have done that, or, whatever. So that's so it's not going to be in the writing because, it's something that happened.
I definitely absolutely believe that it's something that the Education Committee and NSPS should address. And I'll have those discussions with Tim and everybody else, and we will make a decision and let everybody know.
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah, we will. We'll definitely talk about it and clarify whether it's allowed or not. It'll be a black and white decision right here after we discuss it. So yeah, thanks for. I mean, like I said, you try to think of everything, and there's always some things that just kind of sneak through, and that's definitely one of them that I would like to think, wearing my rose-colored glasses, that would come back to that whole spirit of competition. It's young people and inexperience and going through the program, not somebody trying to backfill, like I said, like myself, if I was trying to backfill a degree to go get more licenses. That to me is not part of the spirit of the competition. But what is it NASCAR says? If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. So it's
Yeah. Well, again, I'm trying to go with the spirit of the competition as well. And this is one of the reasons that I've, for years, have been one of the outspoken ones about having a head-to-head competition like we did last year. And I just think it's a lot more fun for the students, and we come in not having any kind of advantage. You just show up and do what you can with what's in front of you. And I think that's also real life more, and it's also a lot more fun for the students.
Agreed. Any other questions out there? Trying to be cognizant of everybody's time, respectful of everybody's time, but a lot of great things covered here. I'm glad we've covered what we have, because we'll definitely get this posted up for everybody else that couldn't make it tonight and had maybe some similar questions. But if nothing else, I say we bid everybody a good evening, good afternoon, and we look forward to getting all the registrations in, and looking forward to another great competition. Like I said, after the success of last year, I'm really anticipating a lot of fun again this year. Denver, anything to add to that?
No, not really. I appreciate everybody making it to this. If you ever have any quick questions or anything else that's really just for yourself and not something I need to tell everybody, like, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always available. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have.
All right. Well, it sounds great. Looking forward to seeing everyone. I do have to have a little shout out to Evie. From what I hear, there is an all-female team coming from Puerto Rico for this. Is that still the truth, Evie? I hope it is.
Yes, we have an alternate. Hi, everybody. We have an alternative member just in case something happens, because, every single hurricane or whatever. Yeah, but we are officially a female team. But there's an alternative member that is going to accompany us.
No,
Yes.
that's what I heard. Trisha shared that with me, and I've been meaning to tell people that just, that's incredible. That's awesome that we're going to be able to have that part of that competition, so those girls can come and kick some butt.
I hope so. So prepare the other teams.
Well, very good. All right. Well, if nobody's got anything else, we'll go ahead and shut this down for the evening. Like I said, if you have any questions, let NSPS know. Shoot a note out to Denver as well. And
Can I ask something?
Oh yeah, go ahead, Evie.
Last year there was it was also fun, the dress up as the EPUB. Are we gonna do that this year too, Denver?
Yes, yeah, there will still be extra points available for anybody that wants to do anything in period dress.
Okay, great.
Yes, forgot about that. Thank you, Evie, for bringing that up. Yeah, it's kind of a really kind of become a standard, but no, thanks for clarifying that we look forward to seeing people participate a little bit more flamboyantly. All right, well, that'll wrap it up for us here. Like I said, if you have any questions, give us a shout, and we'll be talking to you soon. Thanks.
You've been listening to the Surveyor Says podcast, brought to you by the National Society of Professional Surveyors. If you have any questions about today's episode or any other topic, please email us at info@nsps.us.com, and we are here to help. Visit our website, nsps.us.com, to learn more about our association, the programs we administer and support, our sustaining members, and information about future episodes of Surveyor Says. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, as well as our podcast host, Podbean. And remember, it's a great day to be a surveyor.